Welcome back to the channel, where we explore the fascinating and often blurry line between strict automotive regulations and the wild creativity of custom builders. Today, we are discussing a project that has sent ripples through the electric vehicle community and highlighted the glaring inconsistencies in modern mobility laws. If you follow the two-wheeled world, you are likely familiar with FortNine, the Canadian motorcycle channel known for its high production reviews and deep dives into the science of riding. In one of their most provocative builds to date, they have constructed a machine dubbed the Loophole, a custom electric bicycle that manages to hit highway speeds of 62 miles per hour while arguably remaining within the legal definition of a bicycle. This project is not just about speed, it is a rolling critique of the current legislation surrounding e-bikes, wrapped up in the vintage chassis of a 1979 Honda Hobbit. The premise is simple yet ingenious. Take the letter of the law, stretch it to its absolute breaking point, and see if you can legally ride a motorcycle without a license, insurance, or registration. To understand the genius and the madness of this build, we first have to look at the regulatory landscape that birthed it. In Canada, as in many parts of the United States, the definition of a power-assisted bicycle is surprisingly loose in some areas and rigid in others. Generally, to qualify as an e-bike and thus avoid the need for a motorcycle license and insurance, a vehicle must have functional pedals, a limited power output, and a restricted top speed. Specifically, the regulation often cites a 500-watt limit for the motor and a speed cap of 32 kilometers per hour, or roughly 20 miles per hour on level ground. Most manufacturers adhere to this by installing software governors. However, FortNine identified a critical gap between the spirit of the law and the physics of electric motors. The regulations typically refer to the continuous rated power of the motor, not the peak power. An electric motor rated for 500 watts can often handle significantly more power in short bursts without melting, provided the controller and battery can supply it. Furthermore, the speed limit is often interpreted as a restriction on how much the motor can assist, but if the gearing or the motor's winding allows for higher speeds, the enforcement becomes murky. The foundation for this experiment was not a modern bicycle frame, which would likely snap under the stress of highway speeds, but a vintage 1979 Honda PA50, also known as the Hobbit. This was a brilliant choice for several reasons. First, as a moped from the late 70s, the Hobbit was originally designed to handle speeds of around 30 miles per hour and the weight of a combustion engine. It features a stamped steel frame, proper suspension, and drum brakes that, while archaic by modern sport bike standards, are vastly superior to the caliper brakes found on a standard mountain bike. By stripping out the old two-stroke engine and the variator transmission, the team created the perfect heavy-duty skeleton for an electric monster. The aesthetic is undeniable. It retains the charm of a retro moped with its long bench seat and classic lines, but the heart is entirely futuristic. The technical execution of the Loophole is where the project truly shines. To bypass the power limitations while ensuring the bike could actually keep up with highway traffic, the build features an all-wheel drive system. That's right, this two-wheeler is driven by two separate hub motors, one in the front wheel and one in the rear. By utilizing two motors that might individually claim to meet certain rating standards, the total power output available to the rider is doubled. This setup provides immense torque, allowing the bike to launch with a ferocity that no standard e-bike could dream of. Powering these motors is a massive 72-volt battery system. In the world of personal electric vehicles, upgrading from the standard 36 or 48 volts to 72 volts is the gateway to serious performance. Higher voltage equals higher RPM and more efficiency at speed. This battery pack is not hidden away. It sits prominently in the frame, signaling that this is a machine built for business. The result of this engineering wizardry is a bicycle that can reach speeds of 100 kilometers per hour, or 62 miles per hour. That's fast enough to merge onto a freeway, pass trucks, and generally terrify anyone who realizes you're technically riding a bicycle. The presence of pedals is the golden ticket here. Because the Honda Hobbit frame was originally a moped, it came with pedals to start the engine and assist on hills. FortNine kept these pedals functional, driving a chain to the rear wheel. This vestigial propulsion method is what legally keeps the vehicle in the bicycle category, despite the fact that pedaling a heavy steel frame at 60 miles per hour is physically impossible and entirely unnecessary given the electric power on tap. The pedals are essentially a legal fig leaf, a compliance measure that allows the rider to wave at police officers while silently rocketing past them. However, the video and the article from Auto Evolution highlight a more serious point beneath the entertainment. The loophole demonstrates that the current classification system for e-bikes is broken. We are seeing a proliferation of e-bikes on the market that are effectively electric motorcycles, yet they are being ridden on bike paths and sidewalks with unlicensed riders. By building the loophole, FortNine is showing that if you follow the rules literally, you can build something incredibly dangerous. The bike has the power-to-weight ratio to get into trouble, but because it's a bicycle, it requires no safety inspection, no turn signals, and no driver training. It's a paradox on wheels. The build also emphasizes the importance of chassis dynamics. Putting a high-powered electric kit on a flimsy Walmart bicycle is a recipe for disaster, whereas using the Honda Hobbit frame provided a stable, safe platform that could actually handle the braking and cornering forces generated at highway speeds. Ultimately, the Honda Hobbit loophole is a masterclass in custom fabrication and legislative satire. It proves that the future of transportation is arriving faster than the laws can be written to regulate it. We have a vehicle here that is eco-friendly, incredibly space-efficient, and capable of serious commuting speeds, yet it exists in a legal gray area. It forces us to ask whether we need a new category of vehicle registration that sits between the bicycle and the motorcycle, one that acknowledges the capabilities of modern electric powertrains without burdening riders with the full costs of motorcycle ownership. Until then, builders like FortNine will continue to push the envelope, showing us that with a vintage moped frame, some heavy-duty hub motors, and a clever reading of the rulebook, you can build a highway cruiser that technically belongs in the bike lane. It's a rebellious, thrilling, and slightly terrifying glimpse into the potential of electric tuning, and it certainly makes you look at that dusty old moped in your garage with a fresh set of eyes.